Hey, this is what you've been looking for, Lizzie Ram 03. You asked for this. This is the Obsbot Meet 2 4K versus the Obsbot Meet SE. If you already know who I am, I love gear and I love tech, and especially I love cameras. Now, one of the companies that has come across my way over the past few years is Obsbot, and my oh my have they created some amazing cameras. But the biggest question is this: how do these compare? Can I get away with the 1080p version, or should I upgrade to the 4K version? Now, I know the first thing you all want to see is the visual difference of that, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, but it's very important for you to make your decision based on a lot of the differences that are happening technically between these two cameras. You see, while the Meet 2 is a 4K camera, the Meet SE also tops it out with additional few extra features. Let's start off with this. The Meet 2 4K goes up to 4K 30 frames per second or 1080p at 60 frames per second. So it's very detailed, and it will really allow you to grab that high definition streaming look. However, the Meet SE tops that out by bringing in a maximum resolution and frame rate of 1080p at 100 frames per second, as well as 720p at 150 frames per second. So what you're doing with the SE is you may be trading off higher resolution, but you're bringing in a faster frame rate, which will give you that smooth look that some creators are looking for. Now, both of the cameras have the latest upgraded firmware as of this recording, and on top of that, I've reset them to factory settings so that I have not made any adjustments or changes to either of these cameras. Now, let me know in the comments below, which camera do you think is which? Which one is the left one and which one is the right one? Now, out of the box, the video on the left side that you're looking at right now is more rich. You can see in my shirt that the blue is a little bit darker. It's more of a warm tone out of the box. However, the camera on your right side now is definitely much more clear and very specific, and you can see a higher dynamic range in my opinion, even though HDR is not enabled on this camera as well. Now, you can also see more detail inside of my hair. And then if I move a little bit closer, you're going to notice a couple different things. One is the camera video on your right side is able to record my face right now and focus on me. And you'll notice that I'm actually about maybe a foot away from the camera. However, the camera on your left side is not able to focus on me as clearly. So I'm just going to move back a little bit because that's a little bit private space for me, but you can now kind of guess which camera is which. So if you guessed it, that the Obsbot Meet 2 4K is your video on the right side of your screen, and the Meet SE is the one on the left side of your screen, congratulations. However, if you got it wrong, don't worry about that, because as you can see, both of the video cameras are actually very, very good from an out-of-box experience. Difference number two between these two cameras. Again, the Meet 2 4K is going to use an amazingly sized sensor for such a small little tiny box as this. It uses a 1/2-inch CMOS sensor with a single native ISO setting. However, while the Meet SE features a 1/2.8-inch stacked CMOS sensor, this actually does dual native ISO, which will improve your low light handling and dynamic range. Now, here's the low light performance from both cameras. As you can see, the Obsbot Meet 2 4K is capturing a little bit more of that dark areas in my hair as well as the background. Whereas the Obsbot Meet SE, you can see it's really, really dark. It's not able to capture that background. And I have no studio lights on right now. It is simply coming from one or two displays that are sitting in front of me that have a white screen on it. So it's a very low situation where you're probably not going to be doing this in real life. So let's turn on one single light. Now, here's a situation that you might find yourself in where you have a window or a bright light behind you. So that's what I've just done right now. I've turned on a background studio light, simulating that window light. And as you can see, the Meet 2 4K is bringing in and capturing my face a little bit better. It's able to detect that. However, the SE is not doing such a great job where the background is actually properly exposed versus my face. Now, here is one softbox that's 45 degrees to one side of me. A lot of creators will use this kind of lighting for their situations. And I gotta say, both cameras look pretty good, especially when you're not comparing them to one another. However, as I had mentioned, the 4K camera, because of the larger sensor, it is capturing more of that background overall exposure, whereas the SE is really trying to focus on one area. And if you can notice the right side of my face where that light backlight is on the Meet SE. It's a little bit more blown out, where you can see the 4K is much more of an even exposure on both sides of my face. Difference number 3 now comes down to autofocus technology. The Meet 2 4K employs a phase detection autofocus system, so that's very fast and it's also very sharp while it's tracking your movements. Whereas the Meet SE brings in a contrast detection autofocus, so the technology is a little bit different. It's a little bit slower and a little bit less accurate, but still good nonetheless. Now let's test the autofocus speed between these two cameras. All right, here we go. So now you are seeing something very close up with the camera. And as I'd mentioned before, you can see the 4K is able to definitely focus on my hands. They're about 12, 13, 14, maybe about 12 to 14 inches away now, and they're both in focus. So I'm just gonna move that out, and 1, 2, 3. Which one came in smoother? Which one did you see fast? Let me know in the comments, because I'm actually really curious because I'm not looking at them. Now the next difference is all about AI tracking and gesture control. While both the Meet 2 4K as well as the Meet SE include both of those features, however, the Meet SE supposedly benefits from newer AI algorithms that gives you better reliable dynamic reframing in real world usage. However, I have yet to see the difference between the two. So both of these cameras do have natively AI recognition technology, so you can configure these settings inside of the Obsbot Center app. Now, all I have to do in order to trigger one of those, which is dynamic zoom, is I would first set the level of the dynamic zoom inside of the app. So in this example, I actually have 2x digital zoom set on both of the cameras. All I have to do is run the good old L finger, and both of these cameras will be digitally zooming in. Now you can see that that was pretty quick, and generally speaking, it is a really easy and fast thing to configure. However, you just have to make sure that you never put up the L finger, because that will trigger that feature. Now, the other cool AI recognition feature of both of these cameras is automatic tracking, or AI tracking, where you can track a group of people that are moving across or around the stage, as well as yourself and maybe even just your upper body. So to trigger that, I just have to put up my solid hand in front of both of the cameras, and you will see that now as I move around, the camera is going to dynamically zoom and move around depending upon how far or how close I am. So here is the tracking technology, and you can see that one kind of works a little bit faster than the other, and they move around a little bit. So now I'm going to move over to this edge, and you'll see the tracking technology is working on both of the cameras. So what do you think about that? Is this something that you could utilize? Maybe you're doing movement or fitness videos, and if you are, this might be a feature that you'd find very useful. As for the build and design of these two, they are both the exact same size bodies and come in 3 different colors: cloud white, space gray, as well as that really cool and minty aurora green. Now, both the Obsbot Meet 2 as well as the Meet SE have audio capabilities, so they have built-in microphones. However, the Meet 2 4K is equipped with dual omnidirectional microphones, which introduce noise reduction as well as automatic gain control. Whereas the Meet SE is a little bit different. It's only a single microphone, but it still filters out the background noise, but it's a little bit less of a quality difference in my humble opinion. However, in both cases, you're probably better off using an external microphone. This is the audio coming from the Obsbot Meet SE. I'm speaking very clearly, and I'm about 18 inches or so away from the camera, which is typically where most of these webcams will be. And now this is the audio coming in from the Obsbot Meet 2 4K. I am speaking still very clearly, and I'm the exact same distance of around 18 inches or so away from the camera, which is where most webcams will be. I'm now approximately 3 to 4 feet away from the Obsbot Meet SE camera. I'm now speaking directly to that microphone. How does this actually sound to you? This is going to be a little bit further than what most people will be using for this. However, I just wanted to give you an idea, an example of what this sounds like. All right, and this is the same 3 to 4 foot distance, but now I'm speaking into the Obsbot Meet 2 4K. How does this volume sound? Again, this is not a normal distance that you'd be speaking in, and generally speaking, for both of these cameras, I personally would use an external microphone. And there is my review and comparison between the Obsbot Meet 2 4K versus the Obsbot Meet SE. Both cameras are amazing in my opinion, and so really it comes down to what are your desires, your needs, as well as your budget, because in my humble opinion, the Obsbot Meet SE is very good quality for the price. However, if you're recording your content in 4K or streaming in 4K, then I definitely think you should upgrade to the Obsbot Meet 2 4K in order to be able to get that crystal clear sharpness that the camera can offer. And in terms of the pricing, both cameras are amazingly priced and very competitive compared to the other cameras that are similar in the market. The Obsbot Meet SE is currently retail priced on Amazon US at only $70, whereas the Meet 2 4K is currently priced at $130. So for about double the price, do you get double the performance? That's the big question.
Now, if you like gadgets and you have one of the new Insta360 X5 360 cameras and you're wondering what microphone works best with it, well, that's in my next video. So I want you to go ahead and click on this video over here where you're going to hear the differences between the built-in microphone, the Insta360 Mic Air, as well as the DJI Mic Mini. Because did you know you can actually connect that microphone to the X5? If you didn't, check it out.